believe. So we're going to scratch that one off. Afro-pessimism. Baudrillard?
No.
All right, I'm going to write it down, but I don't think so.
Dave, you have till 10 is when they have to be in the dorm, so flex time
Okay,
on you.
perfect. Anyone else? Yeah.
Subjectivity.
What is subject? Okay, subjectivity. Baudrillard, subjectivity.
And you can put like the subjectivity underneath Baudrillard because he talked about it too.
Okay.
Fem IR. Spectrality.
Okay.
Deleuze and Guattari.
Good. Okay, I'm going to do that one.
Deleuze and Guattari. Oh my gosh.
I'm just going to do Deleuze, though. I know. All right. Anyone else? Yeah. The predictions K.
Is that the same as the risk K?
We can talk about that.
No, death K.
Well, I'm not going to go through all of them.
Oh,
So I'll write the ones down.
But we can look them up later.
Okay. Yeah, I will do that.
What's the grammar critique that you read?
We're not going to talk about that.
It's so good.
No, it's
No.
the reason we're not going to talk about it is not because it's so good.
Realism and counter.
Okay, no, I can't even handle you talking about that K and even behind my back. Come on. So the suggestions we have are Levinas versus Heidegger, dualism, Baudrillard, subjectivity, the feminist K of IR, spectrality, Deleuze and Guattari, and predictions. All right. Does anyone else have any last minute things they want to put on here? Okay.
Yes.
Wow, I was really hoping there are two on here that I really want to talk about that no one said. No. It's like you don't even know me. No, with Nietzsche we already did. I don't want to bore you with that. All right, well, let me. I'm going to throw two on here. All right, Lacan and Derrida. Okay, if I were to pick three of these to go through, I would pick Deleuze, Lacan, and Derrida. But I think I'm going to try to get through Deleuze, the feminist critique of international relations, and I coach the Baudrillards. I don't need to talk more about that, but I might. We'll say it's either going to be Baudrillard or Lacan. Okay, so the feminist critique of international relations. The feminist critique of international relations says that the international system is structured by masculinity. Okay? And that structure gives preference to certain characteristics which are commonly deemed masculine and does not respect characteristics that are deemed feminine. Okay? So the world order prefers order, right? Order, and the opposite of order is chaos, okay? So a critique of feminist international relations says that the masculine ideologies that run international relations believe that order is a masculine trait and chaos is a feminine trait. All right? So we should try to always establish order where we perceive there is chaos. All right? They would also say then that a masculine trait includes war. War and violence and aggression are masculine traits and cooperation and actually solving problems are feminine traits. Now, there are different varieties of feminists in international relations, and they have the whole spectrum of very essentialist to not very essentialist, okay? Does everyone know what essentialist means? What does that mean? Okay, so if I were to say all people are poopy, okay, I am being essentialist because I am saying that all people are the same, okay? So if I were to say, well, I know two people who are poopy, that's not very essentialist, okay? Because that's like, well, two people, sure, probably, okay? So there are versions of feminist international relations theory that rely on a very essentialist notion of gender that say that are based in sex. They conflate gender and sex, okay? And so those are not the coolest versions of the argument, but a lot of people really like them. So those would be versions that say men are inherently violent, aggressive, and men inherently have masculine traits. Women have feminine traits, okay? Do you understand the difference between sex and gender? Okay, is that something like you've gone over?
It's like gender binary.
Yeah.
It's a gender binary.
Yeah. So sex is what, you know, is the name for what you were born biologically speaking, okay? And there are also exceptions to this. As science gets more advanced, we learn that even there's more than two sexes. It's not just male and female. There's intersex and there's other things as well. But sex is the biological role that you have. Gender is, Judith Butler would say that gender is a performance, okay? So people, masculinity and femininity is not something that's inherent to you, okay? That is something that you can perform. So that is something that is separate from your sex. So you could be born, you know, sexed as a woman, but have very masculine traits. You could be born sexed as a woman and be, you know, Margaret Thatcher. You could be a warmonger, okay? That is possible. You could be born a man and have very feminine traits. You could be born a man and have very anti-military traits. So there are two, you know, across that spectrum is where feminist IR lies. There are some feminist scholars who are very beholden to the sex part of it and say, no, men, always violent, always aggressive. Women is a better alternative because they're cooperative and less violent. But then there are also the spectrum that say this is not about men and women. This is about masculinity and femininity. And femininity is a more productive performance of international relations. Does that make sense?
And so you said it's the essentialists who say that men are inherently masculine.
Yes.
And women inherently.
Yep, they say all men are violent, aggressive, etc., and all women are peaceful, loving. Yeah.
So essentialists are going to tend to want to maintain a gender binary.
Mhm.
You're not essentialists, you're going to be more open to...
Yes, to a broad spectrum of gender performances. Yeah. Very good. Yes.
So like, our essentialist, I guess people who go by the like essentialist definition of it, are they like people who read that area of the critique are more like, I guess, I don't know, would be more susceptible to lose the arguments like they're transphobic?
Yeah, the essentialism arguments are very strong against some varieties of that, yes. Strategically speaking, I think nowadays very few people read the sex essentialism version of the argument, although some of those authors do write incredibly good cards. So there are still people who might read evidence from some folks who write from sex essentialist position. Yeah.
What was the impact?
The impact to feminists, we haven't gotten there yet. So the argument, that's fine. The argument then is that when we approach the world from a masculine perspective, we will always favor military domination and exploitation over cooperating and working stuff out.
Okay.
So for example, if somebody has an advantage on the oceans topic about how we need to explore the Arctic before Russia does, because Russia is going to go there and they're going to kill us. Okay, so we need to explore and start sending ships up there. You can make a criticism that says their fear of Russia is based on masculine understandings of the world, and instead we should look for ways to cooperate with Russia, not just try to steal the Arctic from them. Does that make sense? Okay. And the impact is, again, that exploitation and that violence and that militarism, those things that are kind of given over to masculinity. All right. Deleuze. So how many? So there's a famous story. When I say turtles all the way down, how many of you know what that means?
Oh, I know what it means.
Okay. So there's this great story. There is, I'm sorry, a story again, but it's helpful. So there is a little old woman, and she's listening to a scientist talk. All right, and the scientist is talking about some exploration of space that they've done. Okay, and the scientist says, in the Earth is round, and you can see it from space, and the universe is expanding, and there is all this scientific knowledge that we have. This little old woman says, well, son, I've been around for a long time. And that is adorable. But we all know that the Earth is flat and supported by a turtle. And the scientist says, okay, lady, sure thing. Let me ask you this. If that's true, what's under the turtle? And the lady says, you think you got me. But this is easy. It's turtles all the way down. Turtles all the way down. Turtles on turtles on turtles on turtles on turtles on turtles. All the way down. So when people say turtles all the way down, that's what they're talking about. That's important, not just a random story, for understanding Deleuze. Deleuze, there are two things about Deleuze. So the first thing is that I'll talk about is the way that Deleuze views difference. Okay? Difference. I don't know. It doesn't look right. I don't care. Good enough. You can fact check that. So, Deleuze says that difference is the primordial, it's the absolute truth. There is always difference. All right, there is in fact, Deleuze says that difference is kind of the primordial truth. There is always difference in every situation. All right, so even now and now. Okay, right now and right now. The only thing that's the same about those is that it's never the same. All right, even in between the most minuscule ways that you can calculate time. A nanosecond, there's probably like a mega nanosecond. I don't know how that works. Does it get bigger or smaller? I don't know. All right, so literally every instance of our existence, the only thing that ever stays the same is difference. Think about that for a second. The only thing that ever stays the same is difference. It's turtles all the way down. So he even has a mathematical equation for this.
Oh, goodness. Oh, math.
Yeah, I don't know math, but I can draw it. It looks like this. He's like, when you try to say x minus x, you're not really saying x minus x. You're like, because there's a difference, so you want the difference. So xy minus, or x1 minus x minus x1 minus x. And you're like, okay, well, maybe that makes sense. I don't know. He's like, whoa, hold on, we're not done yet. So then if that's true, then you're then going x2 minus x1 by the difference of x1 minus x. And then this is x2 minus x1, and this is x minus x. You're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. He's like, well, it's not done yet. He's like, well, if that's true, and then it keeps going. All right? And we don't have enough time for me to keep going. Usually I would fill like the whole board. But that's a really intense Deleuze understanding. So Deleuze says there is nothing that is as static as this, because even x is really just an explanation of a bunch of different little x's. Because the only thing that is constant is difference. So what that means is that the second thing that Deleuze talks about is value immanence. All right, and this is Nietzschean of Deleuze. And Deleuze says that value is derived from individuals. Value, you have value and it's immanent. What does immanent mean? Just, sure, always, right? Always, already. Okay? So you have value that is immanent. That means that your value is not decided based on how much money you have, what college you go to, what kind of job you get, the kind of car you drive, the kind of shoes you're wearing, any of that. That's not value. Value is something that is because you are different. You're different, and you are immanently different. So when we try to comb over difference is when we destroy value. You could. There is Deleuzian criticisms of both the politics of race and gender politics. You could run this in a lot of instances. All right, so Deleuze just says that we should respect difference. The infinity of difference. And it also has a lot to do with like time, right? Because remember that example I gave? Just like different. Right? It's even different. Even if I'm standing still, it's different. Okay? Everything is always already changing. And that is Deleuze. Deleuze just says we should not try to sweep over that difference. Does that make sense? I mean, obviously there's a lot more to it, but that's the conclusion of it. He has a whole reason why that's true, but I don't know if there's...
How in a plan would you be sweeping over the difference?
It would probably, the link would probably be either because, so for example, if you tried to explore the ocean in a way where you tried to know it in a certain way, so you're like, well, now we know the ocean, right? It's like, no, you don't, because there's always difference. You can't. It's a big criticism of absolute truths. Okay, so if people have an absolute truth argument, Deleuze would say that no, the truth. How can the truth stay the same? Does that even make sense from a Deleuzian perspective? No, right? Because it's always different. Okay? There's always the same. Like, oh, I failed. I failed so hard. There is always difference. And that is the only thing that's constant, is that there's always difference. All right. That's all I'm going to have time for. I'm going to let you all get back to the dorm. I will be doing an elective. I think that we have a couple electives. One of them I'll be doing is K-Tricks, and I will try to also do one that's a broader question and answer, so we can do the same kind of thing if you're interested in that. But thank you all very much. I'll stay here for questions for a few minutes if you have them. Otherwise, head back to the dorm. Thank you all. Great job. No ocean yoga. That's great. You all paid great attention.